Okay, hello everybody. Welcome again to the SOB3D YouTube channel. In this Mandy Devkit series, we're going to be looking today at the animation files. So we have here with us, let me zoom in so we can see the names a bit clearer. We have the physics animation kit. We have the dev kit for shapes animations, and then we also have the dev kit for shapes animations, but this one is made with the IMVU Studio Toolkit Armature, and then this one just uses the default clothing export armature. So this is an FK rig, this is an IK rig, and then this is another FK rig, although this uses the traditional IMVU armature that doesn't have the more refined setup of these two. Now we're going to start with the animations using the physics animation. Okay, so I'm going to open up the blend file. So what our aim will be in this video is to create a simple animation, then also have that animation trigger automatic movements in the physics bones. So we're going to, number one, make an animation just with random deforms, but also have these bones, once we are done animating the rest of the bones, be moved in a physics-like manner automatically without us having to manually set our keyframes. So the first thing we're going to do is ensure that our key set is set to location, rotation, and scale. All right, as we make our animation, this is going to key in for every movement we make on each bone. Is going to key the location, rotation, and scale. So I'm going to set my key set to location, rotation, and scale. Then I am going to press auto keying. This is this button here at the center part of your timeline. So auto keying, I'm going to click auto keying. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a simple animation. At the end of the day, all an animation is a line of poses together. So I'm going to create a simple looping animation that's going to be 60 frames in length. Okay, so I'm going to RZ. I'm just going to make something simple, make some quick poses. But before I continue, let me show you the basic controls of animation when it comes to rotation, scaling, and translation. So to translate a bone, all you need to press is G, and this will move the bone anywhere you want. Now, not mind you, not all bones work this way. It's just that this uses the traditional skeleton that doesn't follow your default and more polished avatar constraints. So with this particular armature, every bone can be translated to any position, but that isn't the ideal. So with G, we use G to translate our bones. So we can G along the y-axis. This is our y-axis. All right, so that's front and back. We can G along the Y, we can G along the X, and then we can G along the Z. So what I'm pressing is GZ, GY, and then GX to translate along specific axes. Then we also have the local axes, which are better demonstrated with the rotation. So to rotate, I press R. So if I press RX, for example, I'm going to rotate forward and backward because this is my x-axis. I'm rotating on that line, kind of like I'm spinning a disc along this line, okay? Then if I press R and X, you can see my leg moves forward and back. But if I press R, X, and then X again, you can see at the corner, all right, at the top left corner of your screen, you can notice that the rotation has now changed from along global X to along local X. So your bone's local X may not always be in line with the world's global X. So if I press RX and then X again, you can now see it's doing a deform similar to the Z global rotation. So each bone has its local axis and also can rotate along the global axis. So that just needed to be pointed out. Then of course, we have scaling, but for IMVU, you do not scale in animation. You can scale in your Blender render, but in animation, if whatever you keyframe as a scaling operation, it's not going to translate into IMVU. So your options are just rotation, and translation. So now that that's settled, let's make a simple animation. By the way, this particular file uses the custom fit. So for a lot of default shoes, animations made with this kit may not look correct around the foot region for many default shoes that use the default skeleton. So that's just something to bear in mind. If you notice in your kit, there are parts of your kit that don't move with the bone that you would like to move with the bone. All you need to do is make sure that they are connected to the armature with the armature modifier. Now it's important you have auto keying, but this is an optional feature. If you want to set your keyframes manually, how you do it is you can turn this off, and then let's see if I can come to frame 2. Let's say I want by frame 4, I want the head this way, and I want to put a keyframe here. I'm just going to come to my timeline and press I. So I can do I, all channels here, only selected channels, active, inactive group. So I'm just going to do all channels here, and then I can undo that. In my 3D view, let's rotate the head again. I can press I, and then it's going to automatically key the keyframes according to our keying set. For me, I'd rather use the auto keying so that in case I forget, I am not scrambling to reset or restructure my keyframes. Okay, so I'm just going to continue with the animation. Okay, at this point, let me point out something. Yes, you understand that we have the local X, the local Y, and also the local Z. But when you need to rotate 2 bones at once, you need to have what's called your pivot set to individual origins. So how do you access your pivot? I'm going to press the period key. You have 2 period keys if you have an enhanced keyboard with F12 and a numpad. So I'm going to press the one closest to the letter M on my keyboard. I'm going to press it. Then now I have these options. I'm going to see only locations, 3D cursor, individual origins, bounding box center, and now median points. What does median points do? It's going to rotate both of these bones at their center point, which should be somewhere around spine O3. So it's going to rotate the 2 of them together, irrespective of their individual origins. But what we want when we're working with bones like this is we want to rotate along individual origins. So you press the period key and then you click on individual origins. Now I can rotate each bone on its local X, its local Y, and also its local Z. But you can see these bones are opposite each other, so I'm going to Alt-R to clear that one's rotation. So this is what you should do if you want looping animations. This isn't for everyone. I'm going to press A to select all my bones like I've done. Then I'm going to press Ctrl+C. Now, Ctrl+C is going to work automatically for you, but I have the copy attributes extension enabled, so that's why it's bringing this menu up. So I have to click Ctrl+C, copy pose from the menu. So I'm going to click this. Then I'm going to go to my end frame, and then I'm going to press Ctrl+V. Now, because I have auto keying on, it pasted the set keyframes already. But I haven't moved every bone yet. So you can see that the spine O3, this is spine O3, look at the name, has a keyframe here, but it doesn't have one here. So what I should do before copying this is I should first select everything, then press I to set keyframes across all bones. So that way I now have a perfectly looping animation. I want this keyframe deleted. So now this is how you know you have a clean loop between animations. You have this rectangular line connecting your 2 keyframes. But if in the middle, I'm going to rotate the arm, the clavicle, you can see that that line has gone because there's a breakage between the two keyframes. Okay, so now let's continue with setting up our animation. Okay, what I've done here is I've just, with this keyframe selected, I did Shift D and then I moved it here just to create a small linear transition. Okay, and here we have it, just a sample animation for us to use and get our automatic physics bones going. So the first thing I'm going to do to get my automatic physics bones going is, number one, there is going to be placed in the description a link to an add-on called Spring Bones. Okay, so that's the add-on we're going to be using for this animation of the pec and glute bones. Once you've installed the add-on, here's how you can turn it on. You're going to go to the first frame of your animation, select one of the physics bones, which are these 4 bones. So select just one of them, as I've done. Then you're going to go into bone properties. You're going to scroll down to, you see spring bones. Then you're going to check spring. Now you can check spring again. Select each one by one. Select spring. Select spring. Now, just a quick overview of the settings. The higher the bouncy, the stiffer the animation. So for example, it's going to drag a bit like a loose silk mesh. It can either be elastic like some silk fabrics, or it can be more rigid like cotton. So let me call 1 cotton, let me call 0 very, very elastic fabric. At 0, you're going to have movements like this, maybe 1, 2. But at 1, you're going to have movements like this, 1, 2. All right, so that's cleared. Then you also have speed, which is the higher the value, the more intense the animation. The lower the value, the slower and more dramatic the animation. Then gravity is the weight. So if you want this to have the effect of the mass of a shot put in the pec area, you can have it, and then the animation will be heavier on the amateur. Then you have influence, which is like a switch off, switch on gradient. So higher number, or the highest value you can have here is 1, that yes, the spring bone is in full effect. Then 0, indicating that no, the spring bone isn't doing anything on these bones. So now with our spring bones checked, we're going to click Start Animation. And let's see the result it gives us. We want to turn off auto keying here now. So make sure auto keying is turned off. Then you're going to play your animation. Let's see. So you can see it's giving us results. Okay, so you can see, because we have a bouncy that's still a bit low, we have very cartoonish deforms in the physics area. So we can fix that by increasing the bouncy value. So make sure to stop. Let's set our bouncy to about 0.7 for the pec bones, then 0.9. All right, so if we start animation mode again, you'll see, yes, it still drags, but not as drastically. All right, so that's just the animation. Once you're done, make sure it plays through the entire time frame range, because to get these into keyframes, we're going to have to bake them. All right, so how do we bake them? Now we're going to select just these 4 bones. Then we're going to come to Pose, Animation, Bake Action. Then the settings, we're going to say, yes, we want only the selected bones to be baked. we want visual keying, we want the constraints cleared, then we want to override their current action. Now with these settings, I'm going to click OK. Then now you can see keyframes have been generated. So let's look at the keyframes that have been generated. Stop the animation mode of the spring bones add-on. Then you turn off each bones spring feature. But still, because of the keyframe baking that we did, we still have the animation effect. So all that's left for you now to do is to export your animation to IMVU. How do you do this? You can come into object mode, select just the skeleton. One thing I recommend you do is you come to the dope sheet. You're going to change this to action editor. This is going to show you your action name. So to give it your own custom name, you can give it your custom name in the action editor, which is here. So I'm just going to rename it to test jump physics. Okay, I'm just going to call my test jump physics. It's going to make your FBX export and future import much more legible, and it's going to make debugging a lot easier for you when you have things neatly named like this. So you can come back to the timeline. Then you're going to go to File, Export, FBX. Then yes, you want just selected objects. Yes, this is fine. This is also fine. This is also fine. What is critical to uncheck is the leaf bones, okay? You want to always ensure that for exports for IMVU, you have this unchecked. Then animation, you want everything checked here. Then we're going to export this FBX. The first litmus test you can use to check that your animation has exported correctly is to check the file size. So my file size is 554 kilobytes, meaning that yes, data has been exported correctly with it. If you have an animation of 60 frames like we do, but your file size is around 3 kilobytes, please recheck your export settings and make sure that you have exported correctly. That's the first step you can do as a form of debugging. Now we're going to come into IMVU Studio, and now it's important to note that for the animations you make with the physics animation file, okay, with the physics animation file, not the shapes file, but with the physics file, you need one of the physics avatars, all right, or a product derived from the physics avatars, as well as physics compatible products. So my avatar currently has on the physics avatar, as well as the physics top and the physics. Basically, my avatar is dressed in a way that would be fully compatible with this skeleton. Let's now import our animation. So we're going to come import. This is another indicator that your import is going to work successfully when you have just one animation, depending on the number of actions that are linked to the armature in your physics file. So you're going to click Setup FBX. There are no skeletons that are going to be imported, so don't bother about that. No materials because you didn't export any meshes, only the animation. Yes, so you can see the name Test Jump. Then review and import. All you're importing is just the animation. Then to set it up, to set my action up, I'm going to come to Components. I'm going to go to the Action tab. By default, it's going to be blank, so I'm going to come with a plus sign. New action, I'm going to call this Jump. That's the trigger. Then it's an avatar action. And then I am going to, in my settings, expand the skeletal animation tab and then select Test Jump Physics. Okay. Now, the settings you can leave as default, but the only thing I'll point out here is if you want infinite loops, just change this to 0. But if you want it to be a one-time animation, you just change this as 1, or depending on the number of loops that is required. Then between replace and average, average is a blending with the pre-existing avatar animation. So you can see they wrote it in the description as animations on other bonds will place simultaneously with this one. Replace is like a complete override, which is what we want in our case. We do not have any morph animations because this just works with the bones only. So I'm going to click apply. Then I'm going to click on preview to load in the animation. And then now if I click play, you can see it. So yes, the physics is still a bit exaggerated. So all you have to do is play with the spring settings. So that's the bounce, the gravity, and the speed. So play with them until you have results that you desire. This is just for example purposes. And that is how animations are done with the physics animation file.